Hello, wrestling fans, and welcome to another edition of Fantasy Warfare Tournament. Last month, we did the greatest tag teams. Hopefully, you joined us for those 4 episodes. We're doing another 4-episode tournament determining the greatest theme song. We're going to break it down from WCW to WWF, which leads us up to the time when WCW closed. And then we're going to do WWE from the time after WrestleMania 17, essentially, until currently, and we're also going to do a wild card, which includes some Impact Wrestling and some songs that did not make it into either of these 3 lists that we're going to do first. But before we get into them, we're going to bring in Steven from Toronto. How are you today, Steven?
Good. How are you?
Not too bad. I'm actually on vacation this week. I spent a weekend at my favorite place, Camp Kintail, and a little bit of rain, but everything was wonderful. And now I'm pretty much going to be bored all week with a vacation of doing nothing. So,
well, you can come up and I've got a place you can clean.
No, we're good. We're good. Thank you for the offer. But yeah, I'm going to find other things to do here. Probably some more tinkering around with the show, with graphics, maybe even actually work on my website. So we'll see what happens. Things could be done. You never know. And we're bringing in Jonesy from Niagara Falls. How you doing, Jonesy?
People still have websites?
Yeah, apparently. I just haven't worked on ours because we do more stuff on social media than on a website. But, at least people can get some of our archive stuff from there. But other than that, how are you?
I'm actually pretty good. Little different Labor Day feeling, but
when you're not laboring before or after it.
When you're not laboring, and the children are not back in school yet, so they're still running around.
Yeah, it all depends on what religion, non-religion, grade levels, and regions of Ontario you're in. I know it's all over the place. They could have started this week. They might be starting next week. But on a note away from reality, we're going to break down all the stuff involving wrestling and music. We thought, why not do theme songs? And it expanded once again when our brains start ticking into a 4-week format. So I'm going to play out what we're doing this episode, and then Steven can break it down for us.
So everyone there we go. This is what we're calling our WCW bracket. So match 1, you've got the 4 Horsemen versus Public Enemy. Match 2, you'll notice Sting's in this twice, but because that's a good music. Sting, the Crow version versus Goldberg. You have Ric Flair versus the NWO original, black and white. Hulk Hogan, Hollywood Hulk Hogan, which was the Voodoo. How was that called? Voodoo something.
Voodoo Child.
Voodoo Child versus the DDP. Then you had Jake the Snake Roberts versus Harlem Heat. You then have Ricky the Dragon Steamboat versus NWO Wolfpack, so black and red. You got the Natural Dustin Rhodes versus Ernest the Cat Miller. Then you've got the Disco Inferno versus Sting, but this is the Surfer version. So this would have been, he had the fun colored paint. He pre-War Games 97, 96.
Yeah, about 96-ish.
So is there anything you guys are excited about? Any matches? Got a few here that were tough.
Yeah, I see a couple that are going to be a little bit going either way. Probably in the Ric Flair NWO side of things. Yeah, there's going to be a couple interesting ones to see who advances. Jonesy?
We got a couple hot tracks off of Slam Jam 1 on here. So it's going to be exciting.
Yeah.
So I guess we should explain some of the things. So you guys will not hear the music being played.
Unfortunately, we don't want to get a strike against us.
We can't afford a strike. So I believe in the comments there'll be a link with all these songs.
Yeah, in the description of tonight's episode, especially on YouTube and on Facebook, there will be a link to a playlist that I created with these 16 songs, so you can hear what we listened to earlier today.
And then winner will advance to face the winner of the WWF, the WWE, and what is the fourth bracket is what we're calling wild card. So like Sean said, that's some TNA. Who else is in that? There's TNA. There's some old school WCW, some new school WWE that didn't make it. So it's kind of a mix. It depends. It was people who didn't make WWE, WWF, WCW, and some TNA because there was a few good TNA theme songs. And we tried to create a whole bracket, and then we realized TNA sucked, so we couldn't. So we put a few in, just as pity votes, I think.
Yeah, pretty much. But we tried to get at least 8 from Impact Wrestling. And then when we were coming up with the list for the other 3 brackets, there were some good songs that didn't make the cut. We even put out a vote to see what song number 16 would be in these 3 categories. And then those that did not make it out of that vote made it into the wild card. So that's what we're going to be doing. And I get to start off with the 4 Horsemen versus Public Enemy. 4 Horsemen, it's a traditional faction. Like, okay, we're also, before I get going, excuse me, before we get going, it's not just the music, it's how it affected their entrance and stuff like that as well. If it helped them, hindered them, didn't have any effect. So when you look at the 4 Horsemen, you have this great sound of the horses galloping and getting ready, and you get this big guitar riff that starts out, and it's kind of exciting in that form, and you see the guys come out, and they raise up their 4 fingers. They look all regal, and then make their way to the ring. But after that, unfortunately, it's just guitar riff for however long they take to get to the ring. Sorry, I got a dry throat. Then you head over to Public Enemy. I'm not a fan of rap, but just the way that music goes, it gets you excited. The rapping tells about Public Enemy. It gets people waving their hands in the air like they just don't care. They know they're going to get plunder with the tables. And just the whole catchy vibe with the rapping and the na 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 part. It gets the waving. going on. Fans get involved. And for me, I have to go with Public Enemy, surprisingly, to advance. Steven.
Well, Public Enemy, yes, it did get people involved, but I don't think it did anything for them. I mean, I much preferred their ECW because it was a lot different. And then you have the Horsemen with the galloping horses and the guitar riff and them coming out with the four fingers, the signal of excellence. I'm going Horsemen because if I close my eyes, you hear the gallop, you know exactly who it is. Public Enemy song could have been a lot of different tag teams or a lot of different people. But if you close your eyes and you listen to those two songs, you knew exactly who was coming out with that Horseman, that horse gallop, and the riff, and you knew there was something going on and shit was about to get picked up. So I'm going the Horseman.
Well,
Jonesy,
the Public Enemy, when they came out with the plunder and the way that they walked and the way that the music went, I think it was well. I mean, you had all your classic stuff that's in a kid-friendly rap song. You had the record scratching. I think it would have been better if they would have just kept the na-na-na-na-nas in there and left everything else out there, because a lot of it's just crappy writing and like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, something about heaven. Like and it was just. I mean, it's good for WCW at that time being cartoony, but I mean, the Four Horsemen song. There's so many other things I can say. The one thing I'll say about that song that I really recognize, it's a great song for a group of people to come out to, but it's also a song that anybody could go out to. All you got to do is walk and look around. Give the sign if you want, but even without the sign, that song is just it. In the way there's that I'm trying to think the instrument that's used, but it's kind of like a fast guitar, but it isn't. It's but anyways, that also makes it. It's like Chuck Norris Kung Fu days music that you'd hear in a fight song. For me, it's Four Horsemen. I mean, the Public Enemy song, it's cool, but it gets really annoying really quick.
Okay, so Four Horsemen are advancing over the Public Enemy, which takes us to Sting, the Crow version, which was inspired by Scott Hall convincing Steve Borden to go that image, taking on Bill Goldberg. Steven.
So, Sting, I found it very boring. I get it that it was part of the character, but I thought it was, the more I listened to it, the more I was like, well, this is a very boring. I don't think it enhanced the character. I know him dropping from the ceiling and all that, but I found it very boring. Then you had Goldberg, and the music hits you right in the face right away, and you know that they were banging on his dressing room door, and it had the very unique, intense feeling. I'm going Goldberg just because, again, I did the close my eyes test. Could I pick the Sting Crow music for Sting Crow? And I couldn't. Even though I know who it was, I don't remember it being that boring. So I'm going Goldberg.
The Sting songs, I don't find it boring if it's on a good sound system. If you're just playing it off of, and I'm talking like either headphones or something that isn't a crappy. I have a lot of crappy systems, but I have one real good system, and it's an awesome, well done song, especially that WrestleMania where Sting came out. That version was fantastic. It was a little different because there was more drums, and the shouting that they were doing in the original version. There's some of that. There's a soft organ. There's a soft march going to it. It's definitely got a horror kind of theme to it. The pounding of the drums, it actually is a bit disorienting after a while listening to it. But then there's Goldberg, and not the wrestler, the song. Now, the wrestler helped, I think, the song more so than the other way around. But when he came out and the I want to call them sprinklers, not sprinklers, sparklers. That'd be funny. Sparklers on him, and that pounding, especially before he got there, and then boom, he came out. That song is it's like a march. It's got a weird drum synthesizer kind of thing going on in there. It almost sounds a little bit like Terminator. That one's got my vote.
Yeah, so I think both of these songs are better when it's the whole package and you're seeing the superstar using it with their entrance and everything that goes along. Chris, you mentioned about the pyro that was done with Bill Goldberg when he comes through the entranceway. It all starts also with that whole pounding on the door and the march through the dressing room area with the security, and they're almost unknowingly, I think, marching to the actual music, and not intentionally doing it. But then he comes through and you see the sparklers going off. He breathes in the smoke, breathes it out, does his punches and kicks without falling, hopefully. There is a botchamania with him actually doing that. But, and then the extra booms go off. With Sting, his best part of having that music is the feel that you're in a arena that it's raining, because they do the strobe lights and then the spotlight up on him, especially when he was up in the rafters before coming down, and also even just with the presence of, well, what is he doing type deal. Taking away that element from Sting's presentation definitely diminishes what this song is. I know they were trying their hardest, I guess, to do their own version of The Undertaker and have that mystique type presence there with him, especially with the image presentation. But it does fall short if you're driving around and just listening to it, or how we just listened to it today, to get a mood and figure out who's advancing type deal. It's not an inspiring song at all. The Goldberg song definitely is, and it gets you worked up for knowing that this is going to be a battle. Even if it was only a 2-minute squash match that Goldberg did, you got into the entrance for him. So, of course, I have to go Goldberg as well. It's a 3-0 victory, and we move on to the legend of Ric Flair, and probably what sparked the whole revolution in wrestling, the NWO. Chris.
This one's a hard one. We'll start with Ric Flair. Of course, it starts with the Woo, and it is song from Space Odyssey. No, not Space Odyssey. Space Odyssey. There you go. I've actually never seen that. I've never seen that movie. Know the theme, but it's got a classic build-up. Lots of time to walk the aisle and pick a spot where he would take off the robe, certain things he would do. He could wait for the music, and the way that the music was, even if he missed it, you can always just hear, okay, here comes the thing, and then do. It's a great song to be able to come out to and perform and have it a part of your whole thing, not just just running down the aisle and grabbing ropes and shit like that. I think it really helped him with his whole demeanor. And then NWO, I mean, it starts with static, then it goes to the 1, 2, 3 progression, and then it loops, adds a bit, and then loops and goes right back to the beginning again. I like the song. It's good, but it really wears itself out quickly, especially when the song is on a card like 3-4 times. And it was good, but it was like an overplayed good song. So for me, Ric Flair.
Interesting. Yeah, Ric Flair's song was 2001 Space Odyssey. It definitely gave that regalness to what the future 16-time world champion, the wheeling, dealing, limousine riding, kiss stealing, jet flying, son of a gun, Ric Flair, wearing alligator shoes and everything, and Rolex watches. It gave that image of a champion. At the same time, it was used for a movie, and Elvis Presley used it for his stage performances as well. So it kind of takes away a little bit, in my opinion, from the uniqueness of it being for Ric Flair. I would almost say the same thing if Pomp and Circumstances was used, which isn't in this, for Randy Savage, for our WWF version, because Pomp and Circumstances was used at every graduation as well. Then you get the NWO. Yes, they overplayed it when it got too big and almost everybody was a NWO black and white member. But the initial part of it with Hall and Nash and Hogan, up to X-Pac and maybe even DiBiase at most, right? It was okay. It was classic to use that as the background for these very unique, at that time, vignettes that apparently took 15 minutes of them trying to put everybody, including themselves, mostly over, and WCW edited it down to that 2-minute promo that we'd see during Nitro. But that did spark a lot of imagination. People were into it as soon as the NWO music started. For guys who were supposed to be heels, they became cool heels thanks to Hall and Nash. Hogan was the hated side of it, but you knew stuff was going to go down when the NWO came out. In my opinion, I think NWO is a better song and more original as far as it goes with being for wrestling. And that's why I'm going to go with the NWO theme song, and Steven gets to be the tiebreaker.
You both suck. This is the one that I did not have a winner for. Because it's Ric Flair and it's the NWO black and white.
One of the most popular themes of all time. It is so important, and the fact that he made it even more important. Anyway, not for me.
You've got my past, so NWA Ric Flair, and you have what brought me back to wrestling, the NWO.
It's a tough call.
Is I close my eyes again and listen to these themes, and I could picture both entrances.
Yep.
And I could picture who was coming down. There was no like, who was that again? I'm going to go Ric Flair because I feel like as much as I love the NWO, and yes, it was an amazing theme song, I'm kind of with Jones on this. I heard it too much. I think out of 100 guys on the WCW roster, I think 99 of them had the same music, and it was all this NWO music.
And can I add the difference between that song and the Horseman one? Except for Mongo, when that song hit, you knew, hey, a Horseman, all right. But NWO hit, you went, okay, who is it going to be, though? Is it going to be Hogan or is it going to be Vincent? Oh, it's Vincent again.
It's Horace.
And that's part of the problem is they butchered that song with so many people. Closing my eyes, I could see Hogan, not Hall and Nash come out, but then I could also see Bryan Adams, Vincent, and Michael R. Wall Street or whatever come out. So there's too much of a difference on that. And then if you close your eyes and you heard Ric Flair's, you knew exactly. You could go to anyone, any wrestling fan, and they will know as soon as you hear that, whose music is that? And you just know. So it's got to be Flair because it's too much.
Well, so Ric Flair is advancing in a 2-1 vote. I will let you guys all know, those watching as well, that vote just broke my bracket.
Yay!
So we'll have to see what happens the rest of the way. Maybe somebody from the other side will end up advancing. But that brings me to my next one, which is Hulk Hogan, or Hollywood Hulk Hogan, and DDP. Now, both of these songs are samplings, basically, of other artists. So there's not a lot of originality in them. Just like I sort of said with the whole Ric Flair thing, but definitely not as regal for either of them. Hollywood Hulk Hogan basically was Jimi Hendrix Voodoo Child. Sometimes they had the actual words in it, but most of the time it was just the background music. And then there was the NWO announcer guy doing the new world order, the greatest icon in sports entertainment or in wrestling history. Too sweet and stuff like that would be playing along with it. You'd have Hulk Hogan coming down, usually just with Eric Bischoff. He'd end up playing the belt as a guitar. Sometimes the Disciple was with him too, so Beefcake had something to do that night. But yeah, you knew it was a special entrance though for Hogan compared to always just playing the NWO black and white music, the original. He probably realized that it was getting too many people with that same music, and Hogan being Hogan, he needed to have something that stood out above everybody else. So there's that one. And then there's DDP's music, which starts off with Self High Five. And then it breaks into a version of Nirvana's Smells Like Teen Spirit. Though I think his was obviously a little more interactive for the fans because of how he presented himself. Everybody was putting up the good old diamond cutter symbol as he came out. It definitely was a new departure for him compared to what he started out as with his cigars and the really tacky colors that he was using for clothing, his fur coats and stuff like that, and just really kind of sleazy look to him. And somehow he ended up turning the corner. He had a fantastic feud with Randy Savage. He became the comment man basically for WCW at the time, the People's Champion. And so when that music hit, people were excited. He'd either come through the crowd or definitely leave through the crowd after a victory. And so I think while Voodoo Child did put a spotlight just on Hogan, the Self High Five appreciated itself to the fans. And I felt between the two, Self High Five, that it was a better song. Steven?
See, and I loved DDP's Self High Five, but after that, I just find it, and I love Nirvana, but it just didn't do it for me. Where Voodoo Child, you knew, and I loved the cheesy NWO announcer over it. Again, closed my eyes, and I knew the Self High Five, who it was, but then it loses me. Where Hogan and Hollywood Hogan, I love that theme. That was one of those themes that were very, like, what does it say? Icon of professional wrestling, and they made hit him. I mean, I think NWO should have had more theme songs for the NWO for different members, but I'm going Hollywood Hogan.
So another tiebreaker needing to be done, this time with Jonesy.
John, you're not doing well tonight.
No, apparently not.
The DDP song, I do like it. It's one of the better ones. The awesome riff. But, I mean, the NWO song is good. But it's much better when you splice it together with a Jimi Hendrix song. And, I mean, it is so good together. When he came out to that made me actually listen to the whole version later on after the show, because that song's just that good. So it's Hollywood Hogan for me.
Okay, so Hogan moves on in a 2-1 victory, and that brings us over to our next one, which is Jake the Snake Roberts taking on Harlem Heat.
So Jake the Snake, his WCW, and you can tell this is early 90s WCW, because close your eyes, you could literally, it could sound like any heel. It didn't stand out to me. And then there's Harlem Heat. That theme music stands out. Again, you can play that theme music right now for people, any wrestling fan, and you know exactly who it is. The Jake the Snake Roberts, you just don't get that instant, I know exactly who that is. Harlem Heat, you knew. I don't even know I'm not good with music, so I don't even know what that opening, few beats are. And then that yes, no, and then you can just see the Harlem Heat coming out. And it's Harlem Heat. This one was very easy for me. Chris?
Yeah, it's fairly easy. The Jake the Snake Roberts one, Master of the DDT. The singing that's in it, that's later on in it, it's so terrible. It's like 80s Misfits from Gem. I imagine that the Misfits from Gem recorded this song. I don't know why that came into my head. It's just something about it. It's got a sci-fi feel to it, heavy bass. Some of it's kind of cool, especially if it has pictures of Jake or Jake coming down to the ring. Something else has to be added to that song. And it also has kind of a Running Man feel to it. It's that, again, it's got that in it, that the Harlem Heat one, it's just good. The drum machine's great. That the heavy beats in it, and of course it's just it's a great song, Harlem Heat.
Yeah. When you were talking about Jake Roberts' theme song, he didn't really even last that long in WCW. I'm not even sure why we have this in the list.
He had more than one theme song, and he had more than one theme song in WCW.
He probably had a couple.
There was that, and then they added music, lyrics to it. Continue.
Yeah, but he didn't really last long. The greatest thing he did was have that feud with Sting leading into Halloween Havoc, and Cactus was by his side, I think, briefly, but it landed on Coal Miner's glove. And just his own personal demons didn't allow him to stay long. He also was expecting to be backstage job in WCW, and then there was office changes, and that the contract that he was supposed to have and the money didn't materialize. So a lot of things worked against Jake Roberts, and this song was not a help to him either. You're going against Harlem Heat. That song, regardless of the mix or remix, existed up till Booker T retired, and he even still comes out to it at WWE shows. So it has longevity. Hard to beat Harlem Heat, especially in the first round. And so that's going to be a 3-0 sweep in that one. Bringing us to our next one, Chris, with Ricky the Dragon Steamboat taking on the NWO Wolfpack.
This Ricky the Dragon Steamboat theme is so good. Now I didn't know that the WWF one that was used was actually the Alan Parsons project. That actually surprised me. And again, I'm not a fan of that band, but now I know that song's connected to him. I kind of like, so it starts off with synthesizer trumpets. It's very techno sounding, but not so much the bass beats and stuff like that. It's got a little bit of Rocky to it. It actually reminds me of the Rocky theme by Bill Conti, and also I think it's Paul Herzog that did a lot of 80s and I think early 90s movie themes, Bloodsport and stuff like that. If you ever get a chance to listen to some Herzog, it's amazing stuff. You'll like it if you like this Ricky Steamboat song. The NWO, the Wolfpack, again, this one is the crappiest amongst them all. I hated this song when it just. I think it still worked well enough for them because of the way they'd come out and there'd be a bunch of them, but it does fit their cocky attitude. But it's like it almost after the wolf howl, it sounds like it's like 16-bit video was made on a 16-bit video board. It just is not very good. So for me, it's Ricky Steamboat.
That's a little interesting on that one. Yeah, I'm a fan of Hall & Nash and everybody. Them breaking off and coming up with the whole NWO Wolfpack was sort of them supposed to be separate entity and was still like the Clique, but then of course you end up throwing in Conan and Savage and Luger and Tomato Face Sting. It just started getting watered down again. And then the rap Wolfpack's going to get you, Wolfpack in the house. I think without the rapping in there could have been decent song. Steamboat, unfortunately, left a lot of times when things weren't going right in his contract or his wife wasn't happy with what was going on. But his entrance music was very regal for him to come out. And just his movement coming through the curtain and making his way down a lot of the times the ramp that was level with the ring. They eventually did start bringing in the fire breathing like he did in WWE or WWF. They learned how to do. So when he returned that way and teamed with Dustin Rhodes, I was really happy to see him back. His feud with Ric Flair, the 3 matches that they did, it made for a big match feel anytime Steamboat showed up. I am surprisingly going to go with Ricky the Dragon Steamboat as well. And Steven, obviously your vote doesn't matter, but which way were you going?
I was actually going NWO Wolfpack. I absolutely love that rappy theme. Even though they didn't dilute it as much as the NWO Black and White to start with, and then it got all to crap real quick. But I love that Wolfpack, that howl. You knew exactly who was coming out. It was, to start with, it was always Hall, Nash, and who, sorry?
X-Pac 6.
Yeah. And so, I mean, towards the end, even though when they added Conan, I love that Conan. I love Luger and Sting didn't fit, but I mean, I love that rap part. That just.
I never understood Luger, Savage, and Sting being anywhere near NWO, considering the birth of NWO.
I mean, I get Savage when Savage turned to go Black and White, but after that, I didn't really get it. I didn't remember this Ricky the Dragon Steamboat theme. I didn't have this one winning. I had Wolfpack. I wasn't a big fan. Closed my eyes. I couldn't tell you who was coming out. And that's what like these next 2 matchups that are coming. I was like, oh, Jesus, this music's bad.
But at the same time, I think these are going to be a little bit more fun, and we'll see how they advance. This is kind of the lower card, mid card level on our bracket, but they're fun in a way. I get to start this one with Dustin Rhodes. I was a huge, and still am, a huge fan of Dustin Rhodes ever since he first appeared in WWE, ringside cheering on his dad and being beat up by DiBiase and Virgil. But then they left right after the Royal Rumble of that year, 91, and came to WCW. Dusty went back home, basically, and brought his son. And Dustin was wearing the Western sort of gear and calling himself the Natural. And, it starts off just instrumental, and then you hear, they call him the Natural. And it goes on to tell his story, being a son of a son of plumber, everything like that, and what he wants to do. And it basically gives a story of Dustin Rhodes. I love Dustin's theme song, and he's going against Ernest the Cat Miller. Now, surprisingly, we don't have Ernest Miller's song in the other bracket with Somebody Call My Mama, but this is definitely a very much a James Brown homage type song. He would come dancing to the ring like James Brown. They at one point were putting the cape on him just like James Brown. James Brown even showed up one time one of the events, and they danced together. And so it definitely helped with Ernest Miller's gimmick. But Ernest Miller was also part of that Mortal Kombat group of talent that were brought in, like Glacier and Mortis, and there's one more I'm forgetting. But all those guys were basically Mortal Kombat esque ripoffs and trying to get those video game fans to watch WCW. In my case, like I said, I'm a Dustin Rhodes fan. I'm going with the natural over James Brown, Ernest Cat Miller. Steven?
Oh, this was easy. I won't even justify why, but I'm going Dustin Rhodes because you really think I was going for a James Brown knockoff? No. Jones?
Just they call him the natural, and he's a son of a son and a son of a gun.
Yes.
And the name I think you're looking for was Wrath.
Yes, Wrath would be the other one. That Mortis, Wrath, and yeah.
So is Ernest Miller like the Johnny Cage kind of guy?
Yeah, somewhat, or Jax. But it was just, too much of a ripoff and trying to play up with that Mortal Kombat thing. So, is your vote officially Dustin?
Oh, it would be for Dustin. It would be for Dustin. It's a great, terrible wrestling song.
So Dustin Rhodes is advancing to go against the winner of Disco Inferno or The Man Called Sting.
Well, I can promise you my vote's not for Disco Inferno.
Oh, you're in trouble.
My vote is for Sting. I'm not voting for Disco Inferno. Okay, Jonesy, you go.
The Disco Inferno song, to me, you listen to it, the opening drum beat is used in a lot of songs. Headley's Cha-Ching, it's in there. So it has a common opening disco beat. I'm just looking at my notes. So he's so cocky, he's so cool. He's just a disco dancing fool. The girls scream for more. It's an actually great disco song. It doesn't sound like cheap, like Dustin Rhodes' song, where if they would have had like a better band, a better singer, it probably would have sounded a lot better and not like, it's definitely from like a wrestling album. But the Disco Inferno song is just, it's a lot more quality. And I mean, both Sean and I both seen him come out to that live. So to me, that song is better than the Sting Surfer song. It's not a very well written song at all. And I'm not sure if it's a man or a woman that's actually singing that song. So Sting does that. He's big as a bull, quick as a cat. That's the best lyrics in it. It starts off like a guitar rocky montage. But yeah, so a Disco Inferno song.
Well, that is going to give me the tiebreaker on this one. And Disco Fever.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I can't get into The Man Called Sting. He's a man called Sting. So
I look back at early Sting. He's entertaining, but he's not that good as far as like his interview skills were terrible. He was family friendly, he was good for kids, but his character, I like Surfer Sting, but looking back on especially his interviews, they're terrible.
Yeah, but he was very green still at that time.
It was basically Ric Flair who wanted him over. So that concludes our first round.
I got every single one right. Woo!
Okay, so let's recap this first round. This is interesting. You have the Four Horsemen beat Public Enemy 2-1. I don't think that was that. I'm shocked it was 2-1, but I'm not. Goldberg beat Sting Crow 3-0. Ric Flair beat NWO Original 2-1, which that is one of those ones that is very tough. Then you had
that happening.
You coin flip that. You talk to me an hour from now, my vote could change. But just because those two would be really high up there. You then had Hollywood Hogan, Voodoo Child beat DDP 2-1. Then had Harlem Heat beat Jake the Snake Roberts 3-0. You had then Ricky the Dragon Steamboat beat NWO Wolfpack, which kind of surprised me. I had Wolfpack going right through until the finals on this side. You then had the Natural Dustin Rhodes beat Ernest Miller 3-0, and Disco Inferno beat Sting 2-1. So next round, second round, be quite interesting because match one, we're going to have the Four Horsemen versus Bill Goldberg. Match two is going to have Ric Flair versus Hollywood Hogan. Match three's got Harlem Heat versus Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. And match four, you're going to have Dustin Rhodes versus Disco Inferno. Is there anything that you guys are excited about or matches in this next round that you're intrigued by?
Yeah, it definitely. I'm not sure about for this next round what to expect, but considering how basically the NWO were somewhat favorites by a couple of us, and they're totally out, and it definitely broke our brackets to see what happens.
It's because forward. NWO was against Ric Flair. If it wasn't that song, like later on, maybe NWO I think would have done better. But that Ric Flair song, it's a perfect song to come out to.
Is there any? Is your bracket still intact, Jones, or no?
Yeah, everything so far that I predicted is. And well, I sucked on all the other tournaments predicting.
one out of three's brackets still remaining. Are you guys ready for the next round?
So we'll move on to the round two, match number one. And Jonesy, you get the Four Horsemen versus Goldberg.
All right. This one's a little tougher for me. The Four Horsemen song, you know what? That song, again, for me, it just sticks out because it didn't matter if you're with a group or you're just yourself. That song just is so easy to actually come out to. It's just great. But the Goldberg song, that one, if it wasn't for the fact Goldberg, I probably would have liked it better. But I did like the fact of, without Pyro, that Goldberg song just can't match up to the Four Horsemen. In and Four Horsemen didn't need any of pyrotechnics. I think they did later on. They just, the sparkler bursts, but that song just didn't need any. It didn't need a good system. It just is great. So Four Horsemen for me.
Okay. Yeah, I like the Four Horsemen theme song, but given the choice right after hearing the galloping and then the initial guitar riff, and as Steven said, you can envision them coming out and doing the symbol of excellence, regardless of what combination it was, even with Paul Roma or Psycho Sid, and Mongo McMichael for that matter. It does have that impact and longevity of song, but Bill Goldberg, I think, just has that march feel, and there was a battle about to be happening. So I am going to go with Bill Goldberg. Not necessarily a great battle, not necessarily a long battle, but there was going to be one. But yeah, it just gave a more intense moment to whatever match he was going to go come out, especially when he finally made it up to the main events. And he got that title at the Georgia Dome on Monday Night Nitro instead of waiting for a pay-per-view. Just everything, the build-up of his undefeated streak and finally making it to the main event. Goldberg is getting my vote. Steven gets to break the tie.
Nice.
This wasn't even hard. This was a very easy decision. This will always get my vote.
I could have that song on repeat and just sit with the lights turned down. And
yeah. So it's always going to be the symbol of excellence. Never will I ever not think that is one of the greatest theme songs. I can listen to it from the original right through with Mongo in it. So it's going to be the Horsemen advancing.
Okay, so that brings us to our next one. The Ric Flair versus Hollywood Hulk Hogan. I just need to do
And that's you.
That is me. Yeah, once again, two very popular music tracks were used for each of them, whether you had the NWO voiceover guy doing his thing, expounding the virtues of Hogan being the icon of professional wrestling and announcing the NWO, and then it's Ric Flair. That song, as I said earlier, just has a lot of regalness to him, set to bring out a champion. And that was sort of how he got set apart from the regular Ham and Eggers type deal. He had the glittery robe, whether there was feathers on it or not. Just the time he took to get to the ring, regardless of who was also with him, whether it was J.J. Dillon or Sensational Queen Sherry. He always stood out as being the elite before the elite became a buzzword. So yeah, I'm going to go with the Nature Boy, Ric Flair. Woo! Advancing. Steven.
This was fairly easy for me because I love Hollywood Hulk Hogan's Voodoo Child, but it can't hold a candle to Ric Flair. So that song is something that the next round will be interesting because I have my Horseman versus Ric Flair, but I'm going Ric Flair. Jonesy?
I would have gone with the Hollywood Hogan Voodoo Child song because that one to me just has a lot more going for it. Not necessarily a better song, but that one just has a lot because with the guitar, the NWO guy going in it, and then like it's basically the NWO song mixed in with Voodoo Child. So to me, that's what would make it better than Flair's song for me. I would rather come out to that one than Flair's, even though Flair's would be awesome to come out to. But so for me, it's Hollywood Hogan.
But regardless, Ric Flair does move on. A 2-1 victory, and brings us to our next matchup, which is Harlem Heat taking on Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. Steven.
Oh, this one, again, very easy for me. I'm taking Harlem Heat. That, again, close my eyes and listen to Harlem Heat. Close my eyes, listen to Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. I could listen to Harlem Heat all day, and I could tell you who it is. Again, in the first round, I didn't vote for Ricky the Dragon Steamboat because if you would just put that on, I wouldn't have known whose music that was. There was to me, that had no connection to him. I knew when Harlem Heat's music hit, who it was going to be. So I'm definitely going Harlem Heat.
That surprises me that you don't recognize that song. I didn't watch a lot of WCW or NWA until later, but I knew that song even back in the 90s. And I think one of the reasons why I like it is when you hear that the trumpets going in, da-na-na, na-na-na, I'm not sure what the announcer's name was at that time, but it just with Ricky, that dragon, steamboat, da-na-na, it just was so.
I think.
It was so like, to me, it is one of the best theme songs in wrestling for a guy to come out to, because it reaches that high point, and then like the Four Horsemen song, it kind of has this lag in it that kind of gives the time for the wrestler to get from after he comes out and there's the big boom, then he comes down, gets to the ring, and then it picks up again. So you can actually pace yourself, and it gives the commentators time to talk about him when he's done the announcer says who it is and everything, then they can talk yada yada yada, and then he gets in the ring, and then it to me it's such a well-built song, similar to the Four Horsemen song. The Steamboat one gets my vote. So Sean, you're it.
I get to break the tie on this one. As much as I do love Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, he was the reason why I got into wrestling, seeing him get his neck broken by Randy Savage with the ring bell. But Steamboat does have a place in my wrestling fandom.
This is crap.
I loved the battle that him and Flair had, the triple match, 3-match segments that they did, trading the title back and forth for the NWA Championship. But it's Harlem Heat. It is a hard song to end up battling. Longevity, you knew who exactly it was, whether it was Stevie Ray and Booker T coming out with Sherry, or if it's Booker coming out with Sharmell, over in WWF or WWE. You knew who it was. You still pop for it. They play it for when he does spinneroonies. They tried to get Undertaker to do a Taker-rooney, as you saw during some of the outtakes of The Last Ride. It's just something that is a bigger iconic sound for wrestling than, unfortunately, Ricky Steamboat's song. So Harlem Heat is going to advance with a 2-1 victory over Steamboat.
That makes me sad, but I understand it is Harlem Heat.
Yeah, Steamboat could have gone against somebody else, and I definitely go
at the beginning of that Harlem Heat song. You said what it was. What do they say? I thought it was "Oh yeah, gow gow."
Yes, no.
Oh,
It's
so it's
like
yes, no.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And that brings us to our final match of this round. And it's Jonesy with the Natural, Dustin Rhodes, taking on Disco Inferno. Jonesy.
Is he frozen?
No, everyone's kind of. I think we're good now. All right. Yeah, this is where the Disco Inferno song just trumps Dustin's song. Again, I think the Dustin song is perfect. Earlier 90s wrestling theme. It's fantastic on MJM1 album. Check it out. But the Disco Inferno song, like I said, it's one of the better wrestling theme songs because I don't think it was a song on its own. I think it was created for that character. I'm not sure, but because that song is very similar to other disco songs out there, but it fits right in with that. It's a well done song. It's a great song every time to me because it's disco. So for me, it's Disco Inferno.
Yeah, as much of a mark as I am, and said numerous times for Dustin Rhodes, Gold Dust fan, maybe not so much what he's doing right now, even though he's at the top of his probably physical abilities compared to when he was gaining weight and thankfully not doing the TNA version of himself. That was horrible. I can't think of his name at the moment, but
Black Rain.
Black Rain, that's right. Thankfully, he got rid of that. God only knows what would have happened with Seven, but he was kind of a creepy stalker type dude. And yeah, just not good. Dustin Rhodes fan, all I want, but Disco Inferno, that song, just Glenn Gilberti had a horrible gimmick. Let's be honest. But he made it work somehow with the hair helmet and the polyester and the bell bottoms and the silk shirt and vest. However he did it, he still made it work, and that song just gets you. So thankfully, Steve, you don't have to break a tie and question why, but Disco is moving on. Who would you vote for?
He doesn't have to feel dirty about voting for either one of these.
I would I'd vote for the Natural Dustin Rhodes.
See, now if NWO songs were up against that, they
I can't vote for Disco Inferno. I can't. That was horrible from the start to the finish, including the music. Okay, so let's recap round two so Steven doesn't have a nervous breakdown on the Disco Inferno. So round two, match one, we had the Horsemen. The Four Horsemen beat Goldberg 2-1. We then had Ric Flair beat Hollywood Hogan Voodoo Child 2-1. So all NWO theme is out, which really surprised me, actually. Then match three, we had Harlem Heat beat Ricky the Dragon Steamboat 2-1. And the final match, we had the Disco Inferno beat Dustin Rhodes 2-1. So we had no 3-0s on that one, which kind of surprised me a little bit. Is there anything that surprised you guys in that round?
No, not really. I'm disappointed that Ricky didn't get by, but
So in our semifinals, we got the Four Horsemen versus Ric Flair. And then in the other semifinals, we got the Harlem Heat versus the Disco Inferno. It's going to be one of these matchups is going to be tough, and one of these matchups is not for me.
One of these matches will be tough now.
Okay, so I get to start off with first match in the semifinals, and that's the Four Horsemen taking on Ric Flair. Basically, Ric Flair taking on himself. Looking at these, I have to go with 2001 Space Odyssey, Ric Flair by himself. If he came out with somebody else, it was always a Regal presentation. The group factor, it somewhat depended on who he was with, because you really can't stand seeing people like Sid, even Sting as a Four Horseman, Luger, Pretty Paul Roma, Mongo McMichael, and everybody else who really were just thrown in there as placeholders.
I'll give you a spot. Not any spot, but my spot.
River spot. But yeah, even Kurt Hennig got that right when you were talking about that. Ric Flair, 2001 Space Odyssey. Woo! Steven?
This is really tough because I absolutely love both of these themes. I'm going the Four Horsemen theme. Don't get me wrong, I love Ric Flair's, but the whole Horseman and the history of the Horsemen, starting with Ole and Ric Flair and Arn Anderson and J.J. Dillon, Tully Blanchard, Barry Windham. You just flying Brian Pillman, the one who we don't name, Dean Malenko. I have to go Horseman. Have to go Horseman.
So Jonesy is a tiebreaker.
Yeah, I am. You know what? The Ric Flair song, that's the one that I would rather see live, which I have, but I'd rather see live in with good sound and see him actually coming down to the aisle, rather than him come out to the Four Horsemen one. But the Four Horsemen one, I'd rather hear that one over and over again than the Ric Flair one. And similar to the Ricky Steamboat song, there's a lot that these two songs have in common as far as the build up, and then there's that nice lag for commentators and all that. And so is the 2001 Space Odyssey. But Four Horsemen.
Oh, really? Okay. So the Horsemen advance 2-1 over Ric Flair's 2001 Space Odyssey. Moving us to our other semifinal, Steven, Harlem Heat and Disco Inferno.
Oh, it's Harlem Heat. That theme song, it's Harlem Heat. It's Harlem Heat. Jones.
It's not that hard, but it is if you put too much thought into it. Because again, the Disco Inferno one, both of them are, as far as I know, original songs, and they both are good. But the Harlem one, Harlem Heat one, I think holds more. It's just it's not going to get the kids up and dancing, but the cool kids won't make fun of the other kids that got up and danced. So for me, it's almost forgot Harlem Heat.
Yeah, I am going to make it a clean sweep with Harlem Heat picking up the victory to go against the Four Horsemen. and we'll see what happens from here.
So to recap this last round, we had the Four Horsemen beat Ric Flair 2-1. I mean, that could go either way. Again, you ask me an hour from now, I could change my mind because I love both of those themes. And then you had Harlem Heat beating Disco Inferno 3-0, which I don't think is a surprise to any of us. Sean, since your brackets are broke, so our finals are going to be the Horsemen versus Harlem Heat. Since your brackets are broke, who did you have in your finals?
Well, I had the NWO original taking on Harlem Heat. So at least Harlem Heat, my other half of the bracket survived at least. But I did have NWO original going all the way.
So my brackets broke too. I actually had NWO versus NWO in the finale. I really thought I had NWO beating the Horsemen in the top semi, but yeah, I had NWO versus NWO. Jonesy, is your bracket still intact or no?
No, they broke. For me, I picked Horseman and Ricky Steamboat
To be in the finals?
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, at least one of you made it.
So this will be a fun, interesting finale, and Jonesy gets to start. Horseman or Harlem Heat?
The only thing that stands out from Harlem Heat song that gets me closer to voting for them is when, again, it's hard to describe without knowing the exact instruments and that, but there's that kind of near kind of whistle thing happening in the background, and it does good for when, say, a match is over and the guy is celebrating and that. The Horseman song is a great song to enter to. Whether it's a great song to exit to, that's the thing. Can I think about this a little more? Here, you guys talk a little bit. I got to think a little more.
No, you got to make your first decision.
Like, I want to go with the Horseman because, again, that song, I'd rather listen to that song over and over again than listen to Harlem Heat. But it's not about listening. It's about coming down. I'd rather come down to the Horseman one after I'm done my victory. That's the one I'm struggling with. It's like, I got to say Horseman. I got to say Horseman.
So we have one vote for the Four Horsemen. Well, it looks like Steven is going to be our tiebreaker for who's going to be coming out on top of the WCW bracket, because Harlem Heat, the moment you hear that, just that, even after WWE put in the, now can you dig it, sucker? Which isn't part of the WCW version of it, but what happens after
see, that might have got it over the hump.
True, but that just the sort of thing that plays throughout the whole Harlem Heat song, and longevity that it's had. I'm going Harlem Heat, and so we have a tie.
Well,
Steven?
I love both of these songs, but here's your winner.
Wow.
Always bet on the Horseman.
So your winner of this one, thanks to Steven, is the Four Horsemen.
Oh, yeah. Don't get me wrong. I love the Harlem Heat's theme song because I can close my eyes and picture both of these theme songs, but it's the Horsemen. They had longevity. It's always been the Horsemen. So the Horsemen will be moving on to our finale. I'm not sure which one we're doing next because
our next one is going to be WWF bracket. So that takes in a lot of songs from the Rock and Wrestling Connection, the New Generation, even the Attitude Era. I'm going to play the video of what our matchups are going to be for next week, and Steven can break them down.
Time to get it on. Heads or tails doesn't matter. We lift the game we choose. With the lightning and the thunder, and we refuse to lose. We belong to be out here, proving year after year. So if you're with me, say it louder. My blood, my sweat, your tears.
So what we're looking at next week in the WWF, you got Doink Evil versus Double J with My Baby Tonight, The Undertaker versus The Ultimate Warrior, The $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase versus Bret the Hitman Hart, The Brothers of Destruction versus Mankind, Jake the Snake Roberts versus Dusty Rhodes. You got Diesel versus Hulk Hogan, the Real American. Vince McMahon versus HBK Shawn Michaels. And the final match, you've got Demolition versus Nation of Domination. And should we preview some of the other names that will be coming in the next few weeks after that?
Yeah, sure. Just so there's not a little bit of confusion over that bracket. A lot of these songs could have fallen under the WWF bracket, but because they were still being used in the post demise of WCW and the Get the F Out era, they qualified to move into the WWE bracket.
So, in the next 2 weeks after that, you've got people like Stone Cold Steve Austin, John Cena, Word Life, DX, Sasha Banks, Randy Orton, Voices, Los Guerreros, Triple H, The Game, CM Punk, Cult of Personality, The Beautiful People, Aces and Eights, Beer Money, Nasty Boys, WCW, Bruce the Barber Beefcake, Mickey James from TNA, Bobby Roode, Hulk Hogan, but I don't remember which one that is, and my bracket got cut off. There's a Hulk Hogan one, American. It's an American Made,
which is his WCW theme song when he got brought in with that ticker tape parade at Disney.
Yes. Abyss, Honky Tonk Man, LAX, Fandango, Daniel Bryan, Bailey, R-Truth. So there's some very interesting. I won't tell you the bracket.
American man.
Very interesting brackets coming up. There's themes missing, like Gold Dust, Mr. Perfect. There's quite a few that we could have.
There's Jive Soul Bro.
Oh yeah, we could have had probably 100 theme songs, but we would have had a nervous breakdown.
We will be going back to them, I think, next year in 2021. We can tackle some of them and narrow it down to an era like the Rock and Wrestling Connection, or and also New Era or New Generation and stuff like that. So we can see some of the songs that were not included.
Yeah, there's a few, and I'm sure some of these topics that we've even gone through in 2020 will probably eventually hit back in 2021. I know, speaking for all of us, if you guys have any ideas of fantasy warfare tournaments, whether it's a normal 1 week, 16 person idea or a month's worth. If it is a month's worth, please make sure it's a topic that we can stretch into a month's worth.
64.
Yeah, 64. Don't give us a topic that
like hairdos. I don't think we could do 64 different hairdos.
No,
Probably not, but I think we can do stuff like Intercontinental Champions from different decades, U.S. champions, whether they're NWA, WCW, or WWE U.S. champions. There's so many other topics. Hit us up. Email me, scumbagswrestling@gmail.com. Also on our Facebook page. There's going to be running across the bottom in just a second before we end up breaking off from this. So, yeah, as Steven said, hit us up. Let us know what you would like. You can even be a part of the show. If we take your topic, you could be one of the panelists as well, putting your vote in.
Yeah, there's a lot of keep in mind, if you do want to be a panelist, you have to be able to commit to us, because it does take an hour and a half for the recording, plus depending on the topic. Yeah, research. You got to be able to commit to doing your research. So I know we all enjoy this, so please give us some good topics. I think we have some interesting ones potentially on coming, but we're all willing to get some more ideas. Jones, you got anything that you might want to talk about?
What's the one? Oh, I have a lot of stupid ones, but the one best ring attire.
Yeah,
That's probably a 16 person one, but
You got anything you want to plug?
oh, anything I want to plug? I don't know. Oh yeah,
Such
there's this wrestling trivia game show challenge that I've been doing. It's going pretty good. Meet contestants. If I don't, then that's okay. I can, like I said, I can always do puppets or just read them in episodes. Then you can just guess on your own. But for me, it was I did it more to do in front of a live audience. Really, I might be trying some other different formats of games, because that trivia maker that I use, they are coming out with more game formats. So see what they're going to come up with.
Yeah, I know they have a Family Feud version, and there's I think somewhat like a Who Wants to Be a Millionaire version.
Yeah,
with
there's a Wheel of Fortune too.
Oh, and the multiple choice that way. So we'll see what is going on. We can rotate around. Once again, if you're interested in being a part of it, contact Chris through the Wrestling Trivia Challenge Facebook page, or email me on any of our social outlets, scumbagswrestling@gmail.com, and our Facebook page. Would love to have you on board, have some fun, learn some things you may or may not have known before. And yeah, that's how you can get in touch with us. Scumbags Wrestling podcast happens every Thursday night, barring any personal conflicts. Thursday nights at 8 o'clock on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. And before we take off from here, I'm going to show you how you can get a Scumbags Wrestling t-shirt and support a wonderful cause, especially during this month of September, with Steven's Wrestling Journey and Carrie Malformation and Sick Kids Hospital. So anything else, guys, before we leave?
No, we'll see you tomorrow night at Scumbags Podcast.
Excellent. Thank you, guys, and we'll see you next time. Hey, wrestling fans, it's Sean from Scumbags Wrestling. September is Carrie Malformation Awareness Month, and we've teamed up with Steven's Wrestling Journey to present this great t-shirt. Proceeds from it are going to help Sick Kids Hospital in Toronto as they do research for Carrie Malformation. You can get the shirt for $30 or a poster for $15. However, I'm going to do something better. For the month of September, if you get your t-shirt during this month, I'll reduce it by $5. So you get the shirt for $25 or the poster for $10.